So now that we have the main sim done, let's play with the retime node and try to make a slow motion effect as he reaches the top of the flip. So there's a few nodes that relate to this. Actually, it's called the retime node. If you try to do, let's say, a time warp SOP, it'll actually just make a retime SOP. So this is called retime. And what's great about caching out the points like we did before is that the retime does a great job at interpolating the positions and all the attribute values on those points. So if we plug that in, let's say that the evaluation mode is by speed, and then we'll just keyframe the speed across the whole thing. So to start things off, because we're working at a smaller scale, meaning that this is not a giant building off in the distance, it's a wall that's kind of close up to our camera, it makes sense to turn the speed to about 2. Because anything that is closer to you is going to appear to move faster than something that's far away. And so at, let's say, a speed of 2, let's see what happens by setting off a flipbook for maybe about 100 frames. So now if we press play, we have this for about 60 frames or so. And so you might be wondering why it's freezing like this. One thing to know about the retime is that you have to specify a frame range. So we have this output frame range, and then we also have the input frame range. This input needs to encompass the entire thing. So for right now, I'll just say 300. That should be fine. And let's try re-kicking that flipbook and see if that fixes the issue. And sure enough, it does. So he settles in right around frame 100, and that's perfect. Now, what we want to do is figure out where we want to trigger the slow motion effect. What I'm thinking is we want to get a good look at Eugene's face, so right here at frame 18. So I'm going to start slowing this down maybe a couple frames before that. So let's say that at frame 16, we're at, let's say, 25% speed. And then as we approach what we see in frame 18, that makes up the majority of the slow motion time. And so we want to capture that face as he's flipping forward, and then it goes forward like this, and it turns back to regular speed. Okay, so to do that, go to the retime. We said frame 16, so go to 16, and I'm going to keyframe the speed right here at 2. Now we mentioned that by, let's say, frame 18, this is the main frame where we see his face. Let's keyframe this and bring this down to 0.25. And what you'll notice is that if we go forward, it's going to give this weird strobing effect. And so this is something that's a little bit buggy, or it's just I have something that's not set up properly. So a way around that is if you get rid of this ID attribute and you just rely on name, that should fix the problem like this. So there we go. It was looking at ID, it was freaking out. Now we're all good. Okay, so at a speed of 0.25, we're going through, get a good look at his face, and then maybe right around here, right around frame 28, this is when we start speeding up again. So keyframe that, and then we want to go back to a speed here of 2. So altogether, it looks like that. Then it goes back down, and he lands. Let's do another flipbook and see what that looks like with the timing. All right, so he goes towards the top, slows down, and then comes back down. Right now, I think that this is a little bit too abrupt. I would like it to take a bit more time to reach that slow motion effect. So an easy way of doing that is we just drag around these keyframes and we can ease into that slow motion effect a little bit more successfully. So hold down Shift, left mouse drag to highlights, and then you can middle mouse to move keyframes around. So I'm making a selection here, and I'm just taking these keyframes and kind of spreading them out a bit more. So as we go forward, we end up with that. Let's actually take this whole thing And if we find the right spacing that we like, let's say I go like this, then all we need to do is just drag this whole thing, this whole chunk, until the slow motion is right where the face gets revealed. So now we have this. I think that's pretty cool. Let's also ease back into the regular speed a bit more gradually. So we end up with something a bit more like that. Okay, let's try another flip book and see what that did. And now after adjusting those keyframes, we have something that I think works pretty well. In the next video, I'll offer some closing thoughts and we'll finish the course.